Hey Trailblazers and Tarmac Tacklers, welcome back to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. I am Nick Hancock, your host and USCA and UK Athletics running coach. And I'm here with...
And I'm Matt, and I'm a runner.
And very talented and knowledgeable soft tissue therapist and sciencey geek.
I know, but that kind of, it doesn't sound quite as, I can't rattle off all of the different acronyms that you've got with all on the running side of things. So I'm sticking with I'm a runner. That's my qualification.
Fine. But you're a good runner and you run very far distances, and you're doing the Centurion Slam next year, which is 450 milers, which I'm about to start coaching you for in a couple of weeks, aren't I?
You are, yes. I asked you to give me until December to get my my life in order, because I know that once there's stuff in a plan, I'm going to want to actually do it and make the most of being coached again. So yeah, looking forward in trepidation to next week when December kicks off for real, and so does the training plan. So yeah.
Yeah.
Although I am wearing my kit now as we record, because I am going to go out for a run. I obviously haven't not been running. I just haven't been running necessarily very structured over the last couple of months.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll sort that out. So I'm also about to go out for a run with one of my clients, Simon, who's doing the Arc-Patrician 100. He did the 50. It was his first ultra ever. And he did the Arc-Patrician 50.
As you do.
As you do. And he did really well, like mega well. So he's going in for the 100 this time, having done Dragon's Back.
I was going to say, please tell me he's done something else between the 50 and the 100, because to just do those as your first two ultras. Well, I mean, Dragon's Back is not his second ultra, surely.
No, he did Buckham 56 in between, which he also did.
Which I must admit is nothing like the Arc or Dragon's Back. So he's definitely gone for variety, hasn't he? Good on you, Simon.
Yeah, for sure. Quite frankly, both of us have been slightly unorganized this morning, coming on to record a podcast. I just thought about what we could talk about this morning on my dog walk about 20 minutes ago. So, but I think what I have thought of is pretty good, because it is actually something I'm getting. I get asked a lot anyway around things like gadgets for recovery or heart rate monitors or foot pods, or should I buy carbon plated shoes or whatever it might be. And with Christmas coming, the amount of people I'm talking to, people I coach or chatting with people online, or out with running friends, and go, oh, I've got such and such on my Christmas list. And then also just in a sheer coincidence and relevant thing, I'm testing. I'm showing you this little device. Nobody else can see it because we're not on video, but
it's a little white device that says Core on it. It looks like it might slip onto laces or a piece of clothing.
It goes onto your chest strap monitor, your heart rate monitor. So you need it on your skin. And it is a Core body sensor, and it senses your core body temperature. I mean, should we just kick it off and I'll talk to you?
Let's go for it. So in principle, we're talking about things that might actually be useful for runners.
Yes, and not useful. So, and whether you should have them on your Christmas list, because yes, it is that time of year. We're on the 27th of November at time of recording. So yes, very, very relevant. So, I mean, I would always kind of say, I would always kind of lay the kind of the foundation here of, there are things that you should be doing and not doing before you even think about getting the latest and greatest gadgets that get thrown in our face, because it's so easy in our world of consumerism to go, oh, that's going to make me a better runner, or ooh, that's going to help me recover faster. When actually, there are things that are totally free that you could and should be doing before you even think about buying some of these things. So just to kind of lay the foundation here. So first of all, your training plan should be ideally structured and relevant to you. it should be specific. You should be eating well and the right things at the right times and getting enough sleep. Those are kind of like that for me is the absolute foundation. If you don't have one of those in in sync, I would forget about everything else. What are your
Does that
thoughts on
mean I
that?
can ask my kids for Christmas for a bit of a lie-in?
Well, that is what I'd be asking for. And I
But
get it. I know, like, for some people, sleep, because, like, sleep, if we're talking about recovery, the absolute best thing you can do for your recovery is sleep. And it's free. We apart from obviously the cost of a bed. We all have them, hopefully. Um, that's where your recovery is going to be best found from is from sleeping. And I know there are going to be people screaming into their headphones right now, going, "Well, I can't fucking sleep because I've got insomnia and stuff." And okay, that's perfectly fine, but I would rather somebody be spending an extra hour in bed if they're not getting at least 7 hours of sleep a night. I'd rather you spend an extra hour in bed than foam rolling or in Normatec boots or getting in an ice bath or whatever it might be.
how important is getting the right nutrition in as part of the recovery versus sleeping as a recovery? So, like, do I need to be having a specifically branded uh, recovery protein shake, or could I just quaff some milk from the fridge and go to sleep? Am I like, is there any kind of evidence that suggests one is superior to the other? Or if I'm on a budget, is it better for me to just quaff some milk and go to bed?
Yeah, I think we talked about this when we spoke to Harvey Fortis in 2 episodes ago, and
Yep.
his argument was, well, if you are in a bit of a pinch, and you have it available, something like Huel or whatever,
Hmm.
in inverted commas, complete foods, yeah, that could be useful for you. But his argument was that you don't need to have a complete meal every meal. And for something like and this is a prime example. Last night I did my run yesterday very late for me. 8 p.m. I started my session last night. Went very well actually. And I didn't really feel like eating a full meal straight before bed because that's what I did when I got home was went pretty much straight to bed via the shower, obviously. Um, and I had a, a chocolate milkshake before I went. Yeah, as soon as I got home, chocolate milkshake, went to bed. And chocolate milkshake's a great one because it's 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein, which is ideal. Um, and it's cheap, it's convenient. It's, most people have got milk in their fridge. So yeah, just something like that is pretty easy. And again, it kind of goes back to, the whole kind of gadgets and things. Do you need to be asking for Huel for Christmas or a Huel subscription or any of these kind of things? And I'd say no, just focus on eating well. And to answer your question around how does it kind of play into importance versus sleep, it's equally as important.
Okay.
It is equally as important. You can't. It's those fundamental building blocks of being a good runner. A good training plan that's balanced um and specific for the specific adaptations or specific time of the training plan that you're looking to get ready for your event. Sleep and nutrition, all three of them equally as important.
So when my kids ask me, I'm going to get them to get me a chocolate milkshake
Yeah,
and an early night.
yeah,
That will be their Christmas present to me.
yeah,
All right. Let's talk at some of the gadgets then. Let's talk about your heat core pod thing that you've got
yeah,
going on.
yeah.
What's
Cool.
that doing for you? And is that a worthy Christmas present?
So yeah, so as a precursor to because I'm writing a review for Run Ultra for it. So they sent me this device probably about 3 weeks ago now, and the whole premise behind heat training is there's a couple of reasons for it. You might be doing a race in a warm climate, for example. You might have got yourself into Western States or Leadville or UTMB or Wales in May because the last two UTSs have been bloody boiling hot. Whatever it might be. So you might have got yourself into a race that is potentially or is definitely going to be warm, and therefore heat acclimation training is a pretty good idea, but it needs to be done right. And what the core sensor um, helps you with is, or says it helps you with, is to, like a lot of gadgets. Obviously, it's built on algorithms, a bit like your watch. You've got so many scores on your watch. It gives you a heat adaptation score. Um, there's other things as well, like building more blood plasma volume. The more blood you've got going around your body, the better oxygen transportation you're going to have, and actually even helps in cold climates. So if you have more blood volume around your body and potentially more hemoglobin mass, you're going to be able to transport more oxygen into the working muscles, and therefore, before you start oxidizing, more carbohydrates, it's going to help your performance, even in cooler climates.
So the core isn't actually raising your body temperature though, it's just monitoring it, right?
It's just monitoring it, and then as you move through, so it gives you four heat training zones. It moves you through the heat training zones. Ideally, you want to be in heat zone 3
And
for
what does that involve in
as
terms of
long as
are
possible.
you layering up clothing in order
So,
to do that?
so this is where is it useful or not comes in, and I think for your everyday Joe runner, spending £230 on this little device. 230. I couldn't believe it actually when I saw the price of it.
It's still only half a watch.
Yeah, but is it more effective than so a heat acclimation protocol that I give some of my athletes, if they are training for a warm race, for a
Mhm.
for a hot race, is quite simply spending some time in a sauna at certain times before your actual race. There
Mhm.
was a certain protocol I used for that, and that's been shown to be very, very useful and actually cost effective because going if you're already a member of a local gym that has a sauna sorted, leisure centre um, nearby sorted. So and also it's less stressful. So the thing with and I know there will be people who go, oh well, an easy way to do your heat training is by overdressing whilst you're training. Yes, but getting very hot for a extended period of time is a stress.
Mhm.
Training is a stress. And then when you put the two together, you don't just put that stress and that stress together. You actually amplify the amount of stress. And heat stress training is very tiring, very, very tiring. And that's kind of where I come to having a bit of an issue with this device is that the only way. So I in the beginning, for the first few days, being a bloke, I didn't read the instructions properly. I just stuck it on my just stuck it on my chest strap and just went out running. Um, and was getting back from the run. You look at the app, it comes with an app, and I'm like, well, nothing happened. I didn't even get out of, the first half of zone 1. My temperature did go up, obviously, but not anywhere near enough to get the adaptation from it. Even on like a 3 hour long run, it didn't get high enough.
Right,
Um,
okay.
even so, then I was like, okay, so I'll use my treadmill, which I have behind me. And I did a 12 by 5 minute uphill at threshold with the heating on, doors closed. I've got a thermometer above my treadmill. Um, and I still didn't even get out of zone 2. I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong? So, okay, so decided I should probably read the instructions. And yes, you have to wear a heat suit to be able
Okay.
to actually get the benefits from it, which I have been doing.
And what is a heat suit?
So I mean, a heat suit, quite frankly, could just be going grabbing a bunch of clothes and dressing up. You don't have to go and buy a heat suit. I did. I got one off Amazon. I think it was 35 quid.
Okay. And is
Um,
this just some sort of like lycra thing that reflects your heat back at you, kind of
yeah,
job?
the
It's not
inside of
plug
it.
in or anything.
Where is it? Yeah, the heat, the inside of it. So it's a bit like a waterproof jacket, but
Yeah,
the inside of it is
be reflective,
shiny
I'd
and
imagine. Yeah,
reflective.
yeah,
Yeah, so like there was no heat escape. It's got a hood and everything's sealed and stuff. And
yeah.
yeah, I have spent 4 or 5 sessions now, either on my treadmill or on the bike, and my heat adaptation score is going up. But it is tiring, and I've also then found myself drinking water non-stop because the amount of sweat that comes off you is crazy. So, would I recommend this device? Yes, if you are a front of the pack looking for that extra 0.5% to, break a PB, or you're trying to win your ultra. Yes, I'd recommend it. Um, would I recommend it if you have a coach who knows what they're doing with it? Yes, or if you really understand what you're doing with it and how to manage that fatigue and nutrition and hydration around it. Yes. Would I recommend it as a gift for any old schmo to use? Absolutely not.
It sounds like a gift that would end up requiring them to take on more on board to get the most out of it. If you've got to get, all right, the heat suit might not be particularly expensive, particularly relative to the gadget, but if you've got to get the heat suit, you've got to be monitoring your presumably your electrolytes post sweating. So you might be
Yeah.
investing a bit more cash in your recovery side of things in order to benefit from it. Um, it sounds like if you don't know what you're doing, then the amount of time you need to clue yourself up might also be quite significant. So it sounds like a gift that doesn't just keep on giving, but requires that you keep on spending potentially for the
But yeah,
for the average runner.
yeah, potentially. And I just I don't think it's safe to be using it without really understanding how to do heat acclimation
Right.
training. I do understand. I know how to apply these things. And honestly, I would go back to, if you really want to get ready for a hot race, um, particularly for some of us in the UK, for example, who spend all winter training, and then all of a sudden, the marathons in April come along and it's boiling hot.
Yeah.
Um, I would just spend some time in a sauna. There is a certain protocol which I can share if anybody wants to reach out and ask me for that protocol. I'm quite happy to share it. I would just spend that time in a sauna. It's cheaper. It's probably a bit more relaxing. It's less stressful,
And it is still effective.
and it's very effective. Very, very effective.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not
So
spoiler alert for your review that you do, right?
no, I'll go into more detail on the review, but yeah, I think unless you're a pro athlete, or very advanced, and you're looking for that extra 0.5%, I wouldn't bother.
Okay. So in terms of our sort of ideas around gift guides then, and we're likely to lean more into the tech and the gadgets anyway. Most people will have a watch of some form.
Hmm.
Um, where do you sit in terms of the next, for me, I suppose, slightly obvious gadget that someone may or may not have yet in terms of heart rate straps?
Hmm.
Where do you sit in terms of is a heart rate strap worth it nowadays with the improvements in the watches, or are the watches still not quite there yet to give you a heart rate monitor that's actually going to be useful to you in your training?
Yeah. I know some people will say, oh, well, my watch is super accurate. I've been tested in a lab and my watch was within 1 or 2 beats per minute. Congratulations. It obviously works for you, but it doesn't work for everybody. In fact, in my experience of training the amount of athletes I've trained now over the last few years, I would say 90%, maybe even higher. It's not accurate. It depends on the color of your skin, the thickness of your skin, tattoos. There's so many different variables. So I do think chest and some of the armband monitors. I've actually got the Coros armband here
Okay, yeah.
on charge. And it uses the same technology as as some of the newer watches now. So I've also got a Garmin Fenix 7, which promises to be more accurate, and it was definitely more accurate than the previous heart rate technology, but it's still not accurate. The amount of time that I see it locking onto people's cadence, or my cadence. If anybody's never heard of cadence lock, that's when it's the watch. What you'll normally see is like your heart rate graph will, let's say it's 140 beats per minute, and then all of a sudden it goes boom up to 175 and it stays there. That's
Mhm.
called cadence lock. So what happens is the watch stops reading your heart rate or what it thinks is your heart rate, and it starts locking onto how many steps per minute you're taking when you're running. I see that loads. It's called
How is
cadence
it
lock.
doing that? Because surely it's doing heart rate from light monitoring. So how is it picking up cadence?
It's usually if your watch isn't on um, secure enough.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, because of course that's the other thing is I know I wear my watch. It's not super loose, and when I'm training, I do tighten it slightly, but it's probably not tight enough. And I think last time you and I went for a run, my watch was beeping constantly, telling me I had reached my threshold heart rate, and we were just having a good natter.
Yeah.
Yeah, binned that off as as quickly as I could because it was really annoying while we were running. It was just going, "You're high, you're too high." I'm like, I'm really not. We're having a chat.
Yeah, I think with us being hammered on social media with you got to train in zone two because that's like the buzzword of the moment. I do think then a heart rate monitor is useful, but you also then need to know how to calculate your zones because, again, time and time again, I see people on Facebook groups and stuff going, "Oh, it says my heart rate is, I should be having a heart attack right now," and or they're training in zone five. It's like, well, actually, you're not training in zone five. You just haven't. You're using the default zones in Garmin, which are not correct for you. Um, so yes, I would say a heart rate monitor is very useful, but don't be a prisoner to heart rate, particularly in the ultramarathon trail context, because there are so many variables on but yeah, particularly when you're running on trails because of up, down, the type of terrain you're on. Um, the better thing to do really is go by a rating of perceived exertion. So for an easy one, does it actually feel easy? Could you chat to somebody that's next to you, or could you sing a song to yourself, for example? Those are two really easy ways. And if you can honestly say, "Yep, that was an easy one," then you're in the right place. That is probably zone two.
Okay.
On the road, it is a little bit more useful. Certainly on a bike, it's definitely more useful because there's less jostling around. But you've also then got to take into consideration things like caffeine, how much stress have you been under, how have you slept, um, what have you eaten, that kind of stuff does play into heart rate variability. And I don't mean that in a HRV context, but in one day your zone two might be 130 to 140. Another day it might be 135 to 145.
So I guess what you're looking for is with heart rate, particularly you as a coach, is you're looking for consistency over time,
Hmm.
for which you need a device that you can rely on is at least reading the heart rate consistently. And then you can look further into the data as to looking at all those other variables. Have they slept well recently? Have they
Yeah.
just come off the back of a long race? But you're looking for, do I have a device that consistently gives me good data? And whilst watches are improving, they're not yet. So a form of chest or maybe arm heart rate monitor would be there to give you that consistency of data.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. My first recommendation would be a chest one, but I know they're not very comfortable for some people. In fact, I actually get a bit of a rash on my solar plexus from it.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't particularly like them.
yeah, they are a bit uncomfortable for some people, but they're based on ECG technology. The sensors are right over your heart. So yeah, and a question a lot of people ask is, do I need the branded one to go in my watch? Usually, no. If you've got a Garmin watch, you could get a Polar or a Wahoo or whatever brand, and they should work perfectly fine as long as it's got Bluetooth or ANT plus connectivity. There are a couple of armbands that are in the market that are pretty good. So the Koros one, I wore it last night and it looked like it was pretty accurate. I did wear it last week for my session during the snow and it wasn't. So I don't know if that was it was just so cold that it was like, nah, I'm not having it today. Because it was Baltic and yeah. Um, yeah, last night it looked absolutely bang on. So yeah, there's that. There's also a Polar H10, I think it's called, that seems pretty good. But ultimately they are going to be a bit more accurate than your watch. So yeah, they can be useful, particularly on an easy run context. I that's where I use it more than anywhere is because if somebody is wearing a heart rate monitor and they get back for a run, they go, yeah, that was easy, Nick. And I look at their heart rate and it's like 170 beats per minute. I'm like, wasn't there, was it? No, I went a bit fast. So yeah, heart rate monitors, yeah, you can put those on your Christmas list. Just make sure you're using them properly.
Okay, so then moving further down, I guess the next bit of tech, and I'll be honest, I've never used one, so I don't know a lot about them, but footpod type monitors, cadence type monitors, are they still even worth worrying about? Because I know there was a time when everyone was clipping something to their shoe, but I genuinely don't see it much nowadays. Then again, it tends to be me running with me, so n equals one there. But foot pods,
Yeah.
are they of any use to anyone, or should we scratch them off for something more valuable?
So if you are using Zwift, for example, um, on your treadmill,
Mhm.
the whole virtual running thing, um, Zwift Run, which I do, which is which I like. I prefer that than literally just staring at the wall. You know like to see where I might be running. Um, they are useful there because what you can do is you can generally, whether it's Garmin or Stride or Coros, whatever branded foot pod, you can calibrate them on your run outside and then use that calibration on the treadmill to make sure that actually what you are doing is at the correct speed, for example, because that's the thing. The amount of time I see people go, "Oh yeah, I was running at 6 minute mile pace on the treadmill, but I don't understand why I can't run faster than 8 minute mile pace outside." I'm like, it's probably because your treadmill was wrong and your calibration on your watch was wrong. So at least that can be of benefit. Um, where things like power come in, and power is finding its way into running more and more. The general consensus is amongst coaches and people, I guess, with a bit more knowledge around this stuff, is they're not there yet. They might get there, but unlike in cycling, where you can buy like pedals that very, very accurately measure the exact amount of torque you're putting through the pedal. Every time your foot
Yeah.
goes around, it's just with with foot pods, they are still based on algorithms and calculations rather than actual physical pressure. Um, you see that grade adjusted pace on Strava. That's pretty much the same calculation that these foot pods use. So if you want to train by power, then I would say don't, because the tech isn't there yet. As much as Stride particularly
Hmm.
will profess to be saying, "Oh, it's better to train by power," it's not. It is on a bike, but not by running, not yet, and definitely not on trails.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
All over the show.
Yeah.
Okay, well
So
that makes
save your
that
money on
easy at
that.
least.
Yeah.
That makes that easy. I mean, I was just having a thinking in terms of like tech for runners. Then the last obvious one, and I'm kind of hesitant to get in the weeds on this one. So I was thinking, let's keep it a bit more general. It is, of course, the watch itself.
Uh-huh.
Now my feeling for the watch itself is choices for watches kind of boil down to affordability.
Hmm.
Um, a reasonable ability to find satellites if you're trying to track your run GPS wise.
Yeah.
And then frankly, I think all the rest of it is completely down to the style of running you do. Would that be fair to say? Like some people don't need topo maps. if actually they enjoy pounding the streets around where they are, or they
Yeah.
know their local trails well, and that's their jam. Um, we've talked about how sort of heart rate monitors are improving, but you'd still lean into specific tech for that. Is there anything as a coach that is built into some of the watches nowadays that you genuinely find useful for your runners to be able to provide you as data? Is VO2
Mhm.
or oxygen saturation actually of any use to you as a coach? Do you trust that data? Are there any other bits and pieces that you're like, if someone said, right, I've got an amount of money to spend on a watch. I could get this kind of tech built into it, or I could get this kind of tech built into it. What would be your preference further than just a comfortable watch that tells the time?
Yeah. So I think where I would start is don't get an Apple Watch for running. I think if you're just getting fit, or you know, maybe a 5K or 10K is your jam, fine. That's all right. Yeah, Apple Watches are okay. But the way I have always phrased it is Apple Watches are smartwatches with some running functionality,
Hmm.
whereas Garmin's, Coros's, etc., are running watches with some smart functionality. So I think get the tool for the job. Not that an Apple Watch doesn't do most of the stuff that people need, but I just wouldn't choose an Apple Watch if I was pretty serious about my running, particularly given that most of what I do is marathon and ultra marathon. Yeah, you'd be lucky to get past 30K on an Apple on
With
a
the
sort
with
of
the
a
watch
standard
actually
Apple
tracking
Watch.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know people do marathons on them, but I think if you're going to do an ultra marathon, just even the Apple Watch Ultra, which is a I don't know if that's a marketing thing for them to try and sort of coax ultra runners into buying it, to think, oh, it's an Apple Watch for ultra marathons. It
I
isn't.
think I
It
think
really
it's
isn't.
anyone who spends time outdoors. Looking at kind of the
Yeah,
way they've branded and talked about the different components over the years that go into the Ultra. I think it's anyone who spends any time away from their charger for longer than 10 hours.
yeah, yeah,
Is pretty much what it's set up for. Now, of course, again, they're trying to catch a mass market there, and actually, it's surprising how as you move through into running in general, but then you move through different events in running, you realize how few people out there are actually doing what you're doing,
yeah,
and therefore a mass market watch is less likely
yeah.
to
I
really
think,
give you what you need.
yeah, I think so. You need a watch these days to be a runner, quite frankly. Especially if you want to, um, you know, improve and stuff. I guess there will be people who go, oh, well, 30 years ago we didn't have these watches and stuff. Fine. If you want to, what's the term the kids are using? Raw dogging?
I don't know where that term came from. It meant something very different when we were growing up.
Yeah, didn't it? Yeah, I think if you're quite, I mean, actually, I've got a very good friend who's a very good ultra runner who wears a Casio watch. He's very kind of old school. I don't
Is
want
it one
any
of those
tech.
calculator ones? I used to
Yeah,
love
yeah,
those
yeah,
ones.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Proper Casio watch. Yeah, but I think in the world of running, I think you need it. There's a social aspect to it, although that can be quite damaging. I'm very vocal about my thoughts about Strava. Um, but if you're going to be coached, I'm a very data-driven coach. I use that data to turn the dials up and down on people's training. But I think just sort of boiling it right back down to for your needs, if you are only ever going to do road running up to a marathon, for example, you will be absolutely fine with any of the Garmin Forerunner series, um, or just any Garmin really of any price. But I think
Mhm.
as soon as you start getting into the realms of like a Phoenix or an Epic or Enduro, you don't need those. You don't need to be spending £1,000 on a watch. You'd be very comfortable with a £250. In fact, it's a very good watch. The Forerunners 265, I think they're on now. Very,
Okay, yeah.
very good watch. Excellent watch. Koros have got a few out that are very affordable. I would say the Koros Pace, I think it is Pace 3. I think it's on now. They're all perfectly good, but I think then if you're then venturing into the worlds of ultramarathon, first of all you need battery life, and second of all you need maps. There's no two ways about it, especially if you're doing things in the mountains and you're going off
Yeah,
doing training runs.
My Phoenix 5 is definitely getting to the point now where the lack of topo maps is making it a
Mm.
bit challenging when I go off and do new runs in new areas that are mountainous. And I find myself
Yeah,
constantly flicking between the watch and say the OS apps maps on my phone
yeah,
just because it's all very well my watch telling me to turn left here, but when I'm staring at what appears to be a wall of foliage, trying to find the apparent footpath in the middle of it, the maps, the topo element is really helpful.
yeah.
So it is. I'm not sure if it's quite hit my Christmas list yet, but it's definitely on there for later in the year, I suspect.
Well, it's a good time to get a deal on it. On yeah,
Well,
you do
I
even
mean, yeah,
like
I am looking for this weekend.
I know the Phoenix 8 is out now with Garmin, but I used to have the Phoenix 6, and that was brilliant.
Mm.
I don't actually really notice any major difference between that and the Phoenix 7. I was a bit like, I got the Phoenix 7. I was like, I don't know why I bothered getting this. It's no different to the 6.
No, well, as I say, the five works brilliantly for everything that I needed to do. It's just that map bit, and it
Mm.
is only because I have a habit of going off exploring in new areas, and sometimes, I mean, I was over in Betasicoed. No, well, I call
Better
it Betsico. That's the one. I call it Betsicoed. But I was over there recently, and a mate had pointed me in the direction of some good trail runs, and genuinely, my watch could not hack, trying to find some of the what were no more than animal tracks basically through the trees, and I
Mm.
was relying on my phone a lot more, and it's just a bit of a hassle. So
Yeah,
yeah, those topo maps I can see are becoming more important for those who like exploring.
yeah. I'm conscious of our time because we both have things happening in the next 10 minutes.
Mm.
So I'm going to rattle off three or four things that I was thinking about earlier. So particularly on a recovery, because recovery, you hear so much about recovery. You got to recover, and I'll go back to my initial points earlier. If you don't sleep 7 to 9 hours a night and you don't eat well, then forget about gadgets. And by the way, on the nutrition side of things, if you are listening to this before the end of the 30th of November, you can get my two cookbooks that are on Amazon for free. All I ask, if you don't mind, just leaving me a 5-star review in return for a free, in fact, two free books. So you've got the Ultimate Cookbook for Runners, one and two, both on Amazon. You don't even need a Kindle device. You can only get it on Kindle. You can't get it for free print. But if you are listening to it in these next 3 days, then please jump on, download it, and just drop me a nice review. It really helps to sell. And you get loads of, in fact, you'll get 147 recipes to help with your running.
And the Kindle app on your smartphone is actually brilliant if you don't have a
Yeah.
Kindle device.
Yeah. Thank you. Um, so ice baths.
Go for it. I remember
um,
watching you last summer getting in and out your ice bath. Not watching you, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
When you put the videos up, I wasn't peeking over the fence. I promise.
yeah. I've actually stopped ice bathing, mostly because I fell out of the habit of it over the summer because it's warm in summer unless you've got a chiller or you want to keep buying ice to stick in it. I just lost the plot with it, and then we were away for a few weeks anyway. But I did not and would not use it for a recovery modality because there is no evidence to show that it helps with recovery. Having said that, if you feel like you like being cold and it does help you psychologically, then go for it. I was doing it because with Alison's cancer situation, which we've just had a really good scan result yesterday, for
Oh,
anybody
brilliant.
who's followed our story, so we can have a good Christmas this year because last year was tough. Um, so yeah, with all of that going on, for me, getting in that ice bath for 3 minutes and just emptying my brain and focusing on my breathing for just 3 minutes at the start of my day was purely for a mental health thing. It was no more than that because there's no evidence that shows that ice baths help with recovery. In fact, if you do ice baths at the wrong time, vis-a-vis straight after training, you can blunt the adaptive process. And that's particularly been shown in strength. So if you go and do a strength session in your gym and then you get straight into an ice bath, you might have just wasted your time. So ice baths, nah, nah. I think I keep looking at mine and thinking I might just take it down and stick it in a skip.
I have a similar set of thinking around massage guns.
Oh, that was going to be my next one.
Was it? I did.
Yes.
I hoped it was on your list. I really hoped it was on your list.
Yeah. From
Okay,
a
yeah.
from a recovery standpoint, I'll let you go more into this, but from a recovery standpoint, no. From a performance standpoint, and again, this is like, for somebody who's looking for that 0.1%
Mm.
extra, yes, because there is some evidence to show that it helps to stimulate the endings of muscle fiber,
As long as you don't use
muscle
it for too
fibers.
long.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
So
quite a
like,
short window of use.
yeah. So
Yeah,
literally, like just before a session, you can stimulate those muscle fibers, and it might help you or a
yeah.
race. But other than that, go on.
You see a lot of gym bros using them just before lifts. But again, they've got to be quite specific in their use because a bit like the ice bath, too long and it actually blunts your power output. In terms of what is a massage gun doing, I had a great fun with this, making a video on this a couple of years ago. And then had to be really careful when I did a presentation on it at a conference right next to Theragun, right next to their stand. I was told I had to remove a few of my slides in case we upset them. But there's no evidence for it doing anything in a recovery sense. It is like massage, hands-on massage in that sense, in that it can feel really good, and sometimes feeling really good is underrated. So
Mhm.
if you use it and it helps you feel good and you feel you can move better after using it, then that's an entirely uh personal sensation, and go for it. They can be brilliant for helping you feel like you can move better. Are they actually helping you move better? No, because effectively they are treating your skin to a nice gentle pummeling, for which we have nerve endings that, funnily enough, are sort of attuned to that kind of thing. You've got a few different nerve receptors for feeling within your skin and the tissues below them, and vibration and certain other types of touch are specifically attuned within your body. It's why we like hugging people. It's why we like clapping each other on the back. It's why we like, stroking animals. We're in a sense, the massage gun's just a technical version of giving yourself a good rub. So you can see why Theragun were not going to be too pleased with me.
Yeah.
But the point is that if you find a device like that, like your massage gun, like your foam roller, like your spiky ball, all of which also come in vibrating options, just like your massage gun, then use them if they feel good, but don't spend an absolute ton on buying them because you think they're doing something
Mm.
more biologically speaking.
Those Theragun, actually, the brand Theragun, they're like 4, 5, 600 quid
Oh, you can spend a silly amount
device.
of money on what's basically electric drill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because I did a bunch of following up on all of their research claims that they were making, and using I did a whole load of their training so I could find out where they were pulling information from. And generally speaking, it falls back to a lot of the tropes that we find within the manual therapy industry, which is a whole other podcast, but which is talking about increase in blood flow and increases in certain neurotransmitters and things. And the long and short of it is that the increase in blood flow that you see is very, very local at a skin depth level. It is not affecting your muscular at all. You get a a multiple times greater increase in blood flow by going for a walk. Even going up and down your stairs will increase the blood flow to your muscles far more than a half-hour session with a massage gun will. So, some of the sort of claims are they're not false, but they can be misleading in
Mm.
terms of their overall effectiveness on your overall recovery. So I would say if they feel good, use them, crack on. But like Nick was saying for the ice bath, it's not necessarily the top of your stockings list.
Same for foam rollers?
Um, the vibrating versions, yes. In general, for foam rollers, yeah. Again, you see them as part of warm-up routines, and there they can be quite effective for that kind of short blast before you do something. Again, you don't want to spend too long on it. You can blunt the effect. In terms of foam rollers, a lot of their previous talk was about dealing with your fascia, breaking up myofascial adhesions or knots. Spoiler alert, we still don't know what a knot is.
Mm.
We open up dead people and they don't seem to have them, which makes explaining what they are in live people really tricky. And so how we're dealing with them with foam rollers is a whole other kettle of fish. I have a foam roller because I like using it. What I definitely don't do is foam roller the absolute crap out of my ITB because
Yeah,
that's a
which
piece of fascia that can suspend a car. My foam roller is not going to do anything to that.
Hmm. Okay,
So yeah,
good.
I like them. How about you?
I've got one over there. It's quite a nice ornament.
Yeah, yeah. Keeps the dust off that bit of the floor.
Yeah. For me, it's just the limited evidence of its efficacy is yeah.
Yeah, no, they're feel good. They're feel good implements, and there's plenty of different ways you can get feel goods that can help. A rolling pin is just as effective and a bit cheaper.
And then last one for me, compression boots. So we are seeing, if you're a runner, you are invariably seeing Pulsio or Myomaster or Hyperice Normatec boots. So these are the boots that you plug in and it blows air into them and they blow up and squeeze your legs or hips, or actually there's arm attachments as well now.
So you can,
Um,
in fact, look like Stay Puffed
you can, indeed. I'm going to say yes. Now, I'm going to say yes
with a
because
grin on your face.
I have a pair of them. I've got the Normatec boots, and I'm going to say yes because I like the sensation of them. I can actually like when they're in full puffed up mode.
Mhm.
I feel like a pump going right the way through the back of my neck from my legs. Um, Whether that's from constriction or it's actually helping more blood pump around my body, I don't know. But I like them. I like the sensation. And quite frankly, you know, it makes me sit still. So from a recovery point of view, I can actually sit there for an hour with my Normatec boots on playing Fortnite with my son.
Mm.
In fact, he likes them as well.
And actually do some recovery.
Yes. So that's why I'm going to say yes. Now they are expensive. Do they actually help? I don't know.
What's the evidence for them, Nick? You'll have looked.
That's the
What's the evidence
thing.
for them?
Well, the evidence is that, it supposedly helps to promote blood flow, which actually just having a hot bath would probably be more
Yeah.
effective.
The whole blood flow thing is a really interesting one, and maybe I'll pull out some of the research on blood flow and where some of these devices fit in with that, and just try and help position some of that. But again, I think they probably for me fall into the same realms as the stuff we were just talking about, which is if they help you either because you feel better or perhaps in the case of these boots, they force you into a form of recovery that you wouldn't do otherwise,
Mm.
and therefore might inadvertently negatively affect your training because you're not recovering properly, then maybe they're great for you as an individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the rest of what they do, I'll be honest, I haven't dived into the specifics on the Normatec boots. My gut feel says that it sort of falls into that same category as your rollers and your massage guns, in that there probably are ways that you can just get that blood flow moving around your body in far cheaper.
Yeah.
But that hour with your son sat there with your boots on, where you're both recovering and spending time with the family, which is important when you're out for a 3-hour run beforehand, that could be worth it.
Yeah. Good episode. I'm going to do one more, but this is more of a shout out to Ugoku hats. If you are going to buy anybody for Christmas, get them a Ugoku hat. They are beautiful trail running hats, or just running hats, really. They don't have to be just for trail. I wore mine yesterday running around the Bath University track. And for anybody who wants to get some discount, all you've got to do is join the Maximum Mileage Patreon, and you can avail 20% discount on these beautiful hats.
They are gorgeous. Some of the graphics are incredible.
They are, yeah, and they just feel nice. They're functionally great as well. In the past, and this is honestly speaking, I have not actually liked wearing caps when I run because I get too hot and panicky, even in like some of the worst weather. But I actually wore an Agoku hat for the entirety of Lakeland and CCC, and CCC was warm. It was great, breathable, lovely. So, yeah, join the Patreon, Maximum Mileage. If you just search Maximum Mileage on Patreon, you can get a discount with them and quite a few others as well. Protein Works, which is another thing I would say for recovery is, get your protein in. Protein Works, Chew Start Coffee, Runderwear. It's all on there. There's loads of discounts you can get, so jump on. Matt, let's go for a run.
Yep, I'll see you out there.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Maximum Mileage Running podcast.
You can find more out about us at maximummileagecoaching.com. If you think you need help with your running and you think that either myself or Faye could be the coach for you, then drop us an inquiry. No obligation whatsoever, and we'll have a chat with you about your running. And there's plenty of resources on the website as well. And don't forget, you can join us on the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast Facebook group. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.